Welcome to Whispering Tales. Wherever you are, whatever kind of day you've had, it's okay to let it all go now. You are here now, and this time is just for you. Now let's wander into a story together. A gentle one, an old one, but this time we'll take it slow. We're not in a rush. We're going to stretch this simple tale into something soft and warm, something perfect for sleep. Tonight, I'm going to tell you the story of Little Red Riding Hood. But maybe not the version you know. This one takes its time. It lingers in the details, in the soft moments, in the quiet footsteps through the forest and the warm, cozy smells of fresh bread from Grandma's cottage. So let's begin. A long time ago, there was a little girl who lived in a small, quiet village on the edge of a big forest. People in the village called her Little Red Riding Hood. Not because that was her real name, of course. Her real name was something lovely and old-fashioned, like Eliza or Madeline. But she had this red cloak with a hood, bright red, like the petals of the wild roses that bloomed along the forest's edge, and she wore it everywhere. And so Red Riding Hood she became. Now, Red lived with her mother in a small, thatched-roof cottage with a little garden out front. The kind of garden with herbs and strawberries and a crooked wooden fence. Their house always smelled like fresh bread and lavender, especially in the mornings. This morning, the air was cool and sweet. A soft breeze moved through the village. The trees were rustling gently, and the sky had that pale blue glow that comes just after sunrise. Birds were chirping. Roosters were calling out from nearby farms. And in Red's kitchen, her mother was just pulling a warm loaf of bread from the oven. Red sighed, sniffing the air. She was still in her slippers, sitting near the fire with a book in her lap. Her mother turned to her and smiled. "You're up early, darling," she said. Red yawned. "Couldn't sleep. I kept dreaming about the forest again." Her mother raised an eyebrow. "Oh? Was it the friendly dream, or the one with the talking squirrels again?" Red laughed. The squirrels were polite this time. The fire crackled softly. Red's mother sliced the bread and spread a little honey over it. She handed a piece to Red and said, "Well, I was just about to ask you something. Your grandmother's feeling a bit under the weather. I thought, maybe you'd like to bring her some treats today?" Red nodded. "Of course, I'd love to." She was already thinking about the forest path, the winding trail through tall trees, the little stone bridge, the sunlight filtering through green leaves, and so a basket was packed. Some warm bread, a jar of honey, a wedge of cheese wrapped in cloth, and a little pot of herbal tea. Red tucked her red hood around her shoulders, slipped on her boots, and kissed her mother goodbye. Outside, the village was calm. A couple of neighbors were sweeping their porches. A black cat dozed lazily in the sun. Red waved to the baker's son and set off toward the edge of the woods. And here is where our real journey begins. Not in the danger or the drama you may remember, but in the quiet footsteps of a girl in a red cloak, walking peacefully into the forest, with a basket full of love and a mind full of wonder. The forest was still waking up. Dew clung to the leaves. Soft light poured through the branches. And somewhere, far off, a bird sang a slow, sleepy melody. With every step, Red felt more and more relaxed. The world behind her faded, and the magic of the forest welcomed her in. And now we'll pause here just for a moment. Let the rain begin to fall gently in your imagination. Let the sounds of the forest surround you. A breeze, a stream, the hush of trees. Hey again, glad you're still with me. If you're already feeling a little sleepy, that's okay. You don't need to stay wide awake. Just let your mind wander, slowly and gently, with the story. So, where were we? Ah yes, Little Red Riding Hood had just stepped onto the forest path, her red cloak brushing against the tall grass, her basket swinging lightly from her arm. The forest welcomed her like an old friend. Everything felt calm. Everything felt familiar. The trees stood tall and quiet, like guardians of ancient secrets. Sunlight danced through the branches, casting golden shapes on the dirt path. And the air was cool and rich with the scent of moss and wildflowers. Red took a deep breath. It smelled like pine and damp earth, like magic. She loved this walk. Even though she'd done it many times before, it always felt new. Every step brought something different. A bird she hadn't heard before, a mushroom growing in a funny shape, a rock that looked like a sleeping animal. She hummed a little song as she walked. Nothing special, just something soft and slow to match the rhythm of her footsteps. Soon, she came across a little clearing where the grass grew thick and the sunlight poured in like warm honey. She sat down on a smooth rock, set her basket beside her, and just listened. There were birdsong and the gentle rustle of leaves. Far away, a stream bubbled over smooth stones. Closer by, a squirrel darted between the trees, its tiny paws barely making a sound on the forest floor. Everything felt peaceful. Still, Red closed her eyes for a moment, not to nap, just to rest, to feel the world around her. When she opened them again, something had changed, not in a scary way. No, nothing alarming, just something different in the air, a softness, like the forest was holding its breath. Red stood slowly and looked around, and then, from behind a tree, a shape appeared. Not a frightening shape, just something unexpected. It was a fox, sleek and red with bright, curious eyes. "Hello there," Red whispered. The fox didn't run. It tilted its head, like it was wondering who she was. Red smiled. "I'm just passing through, going to my grandmother's cottage." The fox blinked slowly, then turned and trotted away, tail swishing like a paintbrush across the earth. Red took that as a good sign. In her village, they said foxes brought luck. She picked up her basket and continued walking. Now the path grew a little narrower. Vines curled along the edges, and the trees leaned in closer, like they wanted to hear the story too. But Red didn't mind. She felt safe here. In fact, she always did. The forest wasn't something to be afraid of, not to her. It was something to explore, to admire, to feel connected to. She passed under a low-hanging branch and paused to touch the leaves. They were soft and cool, with little drops of dew still clinging to their edges. She remembered something her grandmother once said, "Every tree has its own voice. You just have to be quiet long enough to hear it." Red closed her eyes and listened again. And this time, she could almost hear it. Not words exactly, but something older, something deeper. The whisper of bark, the sigh of branches, the hum of life, slow and steady. She kept walking. The forest shifted again. Now the trees grew taller, the sunlight dimmed, and the path felt a little more hidden, like a secret only she knew. And Red loved secrets. She came to a small wooden bridge, covered in moss. Beneath it, water flowed gently, its surface rippling with tiny silver fish. Red stopped again, set down her basket, and knelt beside the stream. She dipped her fingers in cold, clear, refreshing. She smiled. She thought about her grandmother again, how she'd always have tea ready, warm and fragrant, with little lemon slices floating on top, how her hands smelled like lavender and old books. how her stories would drift through the cottage, soft as lullabies. "I'm on my way, Grandma," she whispered. She picked up her basket and crossed the bridge, and the forest let her pass. "Let's pause here. Let your breathing slow down. Picture that bridge, the soft moss under your feet, the cool water nearby, the hush of trees above. You're safe here. You're not alone. This path is soft and slow, and it's leading you exactly where you need to be." You're still here. I'm really glad. You don't need to follow every word. Just let your mind rest in the rhythm of the story. Let the sounds of the forest fill the space around you. Soft leaves brushing together like lullabies, raindrops landing gently on mossy roots, the quiet tap of Red's shoes on the path. As Red walked further into the forest, the trees seemed to grow older. Their bark was darker, knotted with time. Their branches twisted gently, creating shapes like sleeping animals or curled up dreams. The light changed too, soft, gray, and silver, like early morning fog wrapped around everything. It didn't feel spooky though, not at all. It felt sacred, like the woods were holding a memory, a very old one. Suddenly, the wind picked up just a little. Not enough to be cold, but just enough to carry the sound of something moving. Red paused. She looked around. There, in the distance, a figure. Not close, not threatening, just watching. It was a wolf, large, still, its eyes shining faintly like lanterns in the dusk. But Red didn't panic. She'd seen wolves before, and she knew one thing. If you stay calm, if you walk gently, if you show respect, the forest respects you back. So she simply nodded to the wolf, and the wolf blinked slowly, then turned and vanished into the trees, its paws silent over the damp ground. Red kept walking, but slower now. The wind carried more sounds, like humming or whispers, but not scary whispers. No, these sounded like lullabies in a language only trees knew. She passed a small patch of mushrooms glowing softly under the tree roots. Tiny fireflies floated above them like stars lost in the woods. And then she saw something unusual, a tree unlike the others. Its bark was silver, its trunk twisted into the shape of a spiral, and right at the center of its roots, a little stone bench. She sat down. Her feet ached just a little. Her shoulders relaxed. From her basket, she pulled out a small jar of wildberry jam, a gift for Grandma. She opened it just to take in the smell. Sweet, warm, familiar. She smiled and closed her eyes. And in that moment, the forest sighed with her. A breeze lifted her hair, soft and kind. Birdsong grew distant. The light dimmed further, and everything felt suspended. Like a dream, Red leaned back against the tree. She didn't fall asleep, but she drifted. Her thoughts floated like leaves in a lazy stream. She thought of her grandmother's hugs, of the warm fireplace, of cinnamon cookies, and bedtime stories read aloud with soft, raspy voices. She thought of the stars she'd see from Grandma's cottage window, how they sparkled like the fireflies in this very forest. And when she opened her eyes again, something felt different. Not wrong, just changed. The path ahead glowed faintly, like it was lit by moonlight, even though it wasn't night yet. She stood up slowly, feeling the story pull her forward again. The forest didn't rush her. It never did. She picked up her basket, adjusted her cloak, and stepped back onto the path. The trees swayed gently, as if they were saying, "Go on, you're almost there." Let's pause again. Take a slow, deep breath with me. Inhale and exhale. Let the image of red under that silver tree stay with you. Let the hush of the forest settle into your room, into your thoughts, into your breath. You've made it this far. That's wonderful. Just let everything fade away. Let the sounds of the forest be the only thing you hear now. Imagine you're walking alongside Red, your footsteps soft, quiet on the forest floor. Every step is like a gentle breath, a breath that carries you deeper into rest. The path was becoming more familiar to Red now. She knew it well. The twists, the turns, the quiet corners where mushrooms grew in clusters. But something felt different today. Something in the air, like a soft, sweet scent that wasn't usually there. She paused. The wind whispered again, but this time it was different. Red could hear it clearer now. It was the sound of leaves rustling in harmony, like a song. She closed her eyes for a moment and breathed it in deeply, slowly, like the world itself was speaking to her. She smiled. This forest, it was beautiful, full of stories, full of history. And yet, as she looked ahead, she knew her destination was near. The cottage wasn't far now. She could almost picture the small, wooden house with the smoke curling up from the chimney. Her grandmother's house. But before she could take another step forward, something caught her eye. A shadow, flickering between the trees. For a moment, her heart skipped, but she didn't panic. No, instead, she simply watched. And then, out of the shadows, emerged the wolf. Not the same wolf she'd seen earlier. This one was different, bigger, more mysterious. But still, there was no fear in Red's heart, only curiosity. The wolf didn't move toward her. Instead, it simply stood there watching her. It was as if the forest was allowing her to see its secret. The wolf's eyes gleamed like two silver moons. It stared at her for a moment, then turned its head to the side, as if offering her the path ahead. Red took a slow, deep breath. She didn't run. She didn't even speak. She simply nodded. And with that, the wolf disappeared into the trees, like a shadow melting into the night. Red continued on her way. Her heart wasn't racing. Her breath wasn't shallow. No, she felt calm, safe, ready. She knew the forest was filled with mysteries, but she had nothing to fear. And before long, the path opened up. She could see the roof of the cottage in the distance, smoke rising from the chimney in lazy spirals. The forest was still here, but its embrace was softening. It was time for Red to return to her grandmother. And as she walked closer, she could hear the gentle creak of the door and the familiar murmur of her grandmother's voice, calling her in from the cold. The door opened wide, and there stood Grandma, with a warm smile that made the world feel cozy. "Well, my dear," Grandma said, "it's so good to see you." Red smiled back, feeling her shoulders relax, feeling the weight of the journey finally lift. And as Red stepped inside, the door closed softly behind her. The forest outside grew quiet once again, as if it too was finally at peace. Let's pause for a moment. Feel the warmth of Grandma's cottage. Let the door close softly behind you, and imagine the warmth of the hearth, the crackling fire, the smell of herbs and spices. Everything feels calm now, doesn't it? You're safe. You're exactly where you need to be. If you're starting to drift off now, I want you to remember this. The forest will always be here. The journey is never far from your heart. Take this peaceful moment with you and just rest. You're doing so well. Your body is so relaxed now, and your mind is floating softly. Let's settle into this peaceful moment as Red enters her grandmother's cottage. The fire was crackling softly in the hearth. Grandma's warm smile welcomed Red inside, the kind of smile that made everything feel safe. Red stepped in, feeling the warmth embrace her, the chilly air of the forest melting away. Grandma pulled up a chair beside the fire, and Red settled into it, her feet tucked under her cloak still damp from the forest mist. "Come closer, my dear," Grandma said gently. "Let me see you. You've been on quite a journey." Red nodded, her eyes tired but content. She felt no need to rush, no need to do anything at all. She just wanted to be here, safe, home. The fire flickered, casting soft shadows on the walls. The room filled with the sweet scent of dried herbs and wood. Everything felt so comforting, so still. Grandma handed her a warm cup of tea, her favorite, chamomile and honey. It was soothing, like the sound of rain on the roof, calming every part of Red's body. As she sipped the tea, Red felt her eyes begin to close. The warmth of the room, the sound of the fire, the safety of being here with Grandma, it was all so peaceful. Grandma's voice was soft, like a lullaby. "Tell me, my dear, how was the forest today?" she asked, brushing a strand of Red's hair from her face. Red smiled, her eyes heavy. "The forest was quiet, Grandma. There was a wolf, but I wasn't afraid. The trees spoke to me and the wind, it was like a song." Grandma smiled, her eyes twinkling. "It's the magic of the forest, my dear. It whispers to those who listen." Red nodded, her body sinking deeper into the chair. Everything was perfect. Nothing was rushed. There was no hurry, only peace. Grandma's voice continued, gentle and warm. "Now, close your eyes, little one. Rest your mind and your heart." Red felt herself becoming drowsy, her body heavy but comfortable. She allowed herself to relax, to listen to the soft crackling of the fire, the gentle rhythm of her breath. And in that moment, everything felt complete. The forest outside was quiet now, just the rustling of leaves in the wind. Red's eyes fluttered closed, her breathing slow and steady. She was home, safe. And as she drifted off to sleep, the fire burned softly, and the moon rose high in the sky. The world outside was calm, the stars shining like little whispers in the night. Let's take a moment. Feel how your body is resting, how your breath is slow and peaceful. The warmth of the fire, the safety of the home. Let these feelings fill you up. Now just let go. Feel yourself getting heavier, the weight of the day lifting off of you. There's no need to think, no need to do anything. Just let your body relax and fall deeper into this peaceful sleep. You've made it here to this calm, cozy place. And now you can rest. You can drift off into your own dreams, where everything is safe and peaceful. Just like Red, everything will be okay. You're safe. You're home. Let the quiet of the night take over. Let the stars guide you into the dream world. And sleep, sweet dreams. And so, with the forest quiet once more, and little Red safely home, we let that story rest, like leaves settling on the forest floor. But the night isn't over yet. there's another story waiting to be told. This one begins in a distant village, where cinders warm a quiet hearth and a girl dreams under a blanket of stars. Let's gently drift there together to the world of Cinderella. There was a girl. Her name was Cinderella. She lived in a small, quiet village at the edge of a big, whispering forest, a place where the trees swayed gently in the breeze and the stars always seemed a little brighter. Now, Cinderella didn't live in a castle. Not yet, anyway. She lived in a little stone house with creaky wooden floors, a tiny garden, and a fireplace that crackled softly at night. But her life, it wasn't easy. After her mother passed away, her father remarried. He brought home a new wife and 2 daughters. And well, you've probably heard about them. They weren't exactly what you'd call kind. But let's not rush, because this story isn't just about what happened. It's about the quiet moments in between. The mornings when Cinderella woke up, before the sun even rose, her bare feet on the cold stone floor, making her way to the kitchen, where the fire had long gone out. She would light a little flame, warm her hands, and breathe in the scent of herbs and bread. Even in that small moment, there was peace, there was stillness, and though her stepsisters grumbled, and her stepmother barked orders, Cinderella found comfort in tiny things, like the birds that sang outside her window, the mice that kept her company as she swept the floor, the soft rustle of the trees just beyond the garden gate. At night, when everyone else was asleep, she would sit by the fire, watching the embers glow. She'd whisper dreams into the air, dreams so soft, they sounded more like wishes. I just want to be seen, not as a servant, not as someone to boss around, just me. And the stars would listen. They always did. So, one morning, as Cinderella was sweeping the dusty floor, the front door creaked open, and in walked a royal messenger. He was tall, dressed in deep blue and gold, and he carried a scroll sealed with a red wax emblem, the crest of the palace. The sound of his boots echoed on the stone floor, as he cleared his throat and read aloud. By royal decree, all maidens of the land are invited to a grand ball, in honor of the crown prince, a celebration of light and love, to be held beneath the stars at the royal palace. Let joy be shared and dreams be danced. Ella paused, broom in hand. For a moment, the house was silent. Even the cinders seemed to hold their breath. Her heart beat just a little faster. This was it. This was the something she'd been whispering to the stars about. But then, her stepmother's sharp voice broke the stillness. "How lovely," she said with a false smile. "Of course, my daughters will attend." Ella looked up, hope beginning to flutter in her chest. "May I come too?" she asked softly. Her stepmother laughed, a dry, cold sound. "You?" she sneered. "What would you wear? Ashes and dreams? Stay here and clean the floors. That's what suits you best." And just like that, the little light inside Ella dimmed again. That night, as the house slept, Cinderella crept up to the attic. She opened a small wooden chest tucked beneath the eaves. Inside, a dress. Old, yes, but once it had been her mother's. Soft, flowing sky blue, the color of dawn. She held it up gently, and for a moment, just a tiny moment, She imagined dancing under the moonlight. Free, whole, seen. The days passed. The house buzzed with excitement. Her stepsisters argued over ribbons and jewels. Her stepmother barked orders and sent Ella running from one room to the next. But still, she worked on the dress. Each night, by candlelight, she stitched and cleaned. Soft hands moving slowly. Quiet hope. She never said it out loud, but the stars still heard her. And then, the night of the ball arrived. The sky turned a deep indigo, with tiny silver stars scattered across it like sugar on velvet. Her stepsisters twirled in their new gowns. Their laughter echoed like glass breaking. Her stepmother inspected them like a general before battle. And Ella? She waited. She had finished her dress. She had brushed the ash from her hair. And when she stepped out, just for a moment, she looked like a girl from a dream. But dreams are fragile, and jealousy is sharp. In one cruel moment, her stepsisters tore the dress, bit by bit, ribbon by ribbon, until it was nothing but memory. They laughed as they left, climbing into the carriage, without a second glance. And Ella stood in silence, bare feet on the stone floor, her heart heavy, eyes full, not just with sadness, but with that aching kind of tired that seeps into your bones. She didn't cry, not really. She just sat beside the garden, under the old tree, and whispered, "I just wanted one night, one dance, one moment." The wind moved softly through the leaves, and somewhere nearby, something shimmered. Cinderella sat quietly beneath the tall tree in the garden. The bark felt warm behind her back, and the stars blinked softly overhead. The night smelled like lavender and damp earth, like something waiting to bloom. She closed her eyes and let the quiet wrap around her like a blanket. Then, a light, soft, golden, flickering at first, like candlelight in the wind. She opened her eyes, and there, standing just a few steps away, was an old woman. Her silver hair shimmered like moonlight, and her eyes were kind. So kind, Cinderella felt like she already knew her. "You wished," the woman said gently, "and I heard it." Cinderella blinked, unsure what to say. The old woman stepped closer and smiled. "I am your fairy godmother, dear. You don't have to say a word." She reached into her long, leafy cloak and pulled out a wand that looked like it had grown from the forest itself. And with a slow, graceful wave, the garden came alive. Sparkles the air shimmered with gold. Sparkles the leaves sparkled like frost. Sparkles the wind hummed with old songs. And just like that, the torn dress in Cinderella's hands transformed. It turned to silk as soft as a whisper, blue as the summer twilight, threaded with stars. Her shoes, glass, clear and delicate, like walking on moonlight. Cinderella gasped. Her hand flew to her chest. She didn't know what to say. "You shall go to the ball," the fairy godmother said with a smile. "But listen closely. When the clock strikes 12, the magic will fade." Cinderella nodded, and before she could blink again, there stood a carriage, shining white, drawn by horses as soft as clouds. She stepped in. The door closed gently, and she was off. The road to the castle wound through sleeping fields, and past silent rivers. Fireflies danced in the grass. The moon hung like a lantern in the sky. Cinderella held her breath. For the first time in so long, she wasn't cleaning floors. She wasn't small or invisible. She was part of the story. The palace came into view, golden towers glowing in the distance, music floating on the wind. As the carriage pulled to a stop, Cinderella stepped out slowly. Gasps, whispers, eyes turned to her. She wasn't sure if her feet were touching the ground. Inside, chandeliers dripped with light. The ballroom floor gleamed like polished stone. And then, from across the room, she saw him, the prince, young, kind-eyed, quiet. He didn't say much. He just held out his hand. And Cinderella, still not quite believing, placed her fingers gently in his. They danced, not like in stories, not perfect, but real. They smiled, they laughed, and for a little while, it felt like the whole world paused just for them. But time, as always, moved on. And then, from somewhere far away, the bells began to ring. 1, 2, 3. Cinderella's heart skipped. "I have to go," she whispered, pulling away gently. The prince tried to follow, but she was already running, down the marble steps, past the fountains, into the night. And as the final bell rang, her dress faded, her shoes disappeared, except for one, a single glass slipper left behind on the palace stairs, glowing faintly in the moonlight. The next morning, the palace was quiet. The golden light of dawn touched every window, every polished floor. But the prince, he wasn't smiling. He stood at the balcony, still holding the glass slipper in his hand. So small, so delicate, almost like a dream. "I don't even know her name," he whispered to the morning wind. "But I know how I felt when I looked in her eyes." And with that, he made a choice, a gentle, stubborn choice. "I will find her, no matter what it takes." And so the search began, not with armies or trumpets, but quietly, patiently. The prince and his most trusted guards traveled from village to village, knocking on doors, asking a single question: "May I try this shoe on you?" The slipper never fit. Not the duchess's daughter, not the baker's niece, not the girl with 10 dresses and no smiles. The shoe was always too small, or too big, or just not quite right. But the prince didn't give up. Meanwhile, back at the little house on the edge of the woods, Cinderella was sweeping the ashes again. It was almost funny how one magical night could fade into dust. But she smiled softly to herself, because she still had the memory. She still remembered how it felt to dance beneath the stars, to be seen, to be her. She didn't expect anything more. She didn't ask for it. But fate, as always, has its own rhythm. One day, just as the sun was dipping low behind the hills, a knock came at the door. The stepmother opened it, all charm and false politeness. "Yes, of course, Your Highness. Please, my daughters are inside." And so the slipper came out again. The first stepsister squeezed, twisted, pushed. The shoe would not go on. The second tried harder, wrapping her foot in cloth even. Still, the slipper stayed firm, unmoved. The prince sighed. "Is there no one else in this house?" he asked. The stepmother paused, just a moment too long. "Only a servant girl," she said, waving her hand. The prince raised an eyebrow. "I'd like to meet her." And so, Cinderella was called. She came down the stairs slowly, her hands still dusted with flour. And when the prince saw her, his heart stopped. He knew, even in the plain dress, even with ash on her cheek, he knew. She sat down quietly, slipped her foot into the glass slipper, and it fit perfectly. No magic sparks, no flash of light, just two people seeing each other fully for the second time. "It's you," the prince whispered, smiling. Cinderella smiled back. "It's me." They didn't rush. There were no royal orders or grand parades, just a carriage ride, slow, quiet, two people sitting side by side, talking about stars. and gardens, and dreams that don't fade, even when the night ends. When they returned to the palace, the doors opened softly, the lights shimmered, and the staff, seeing her, smiled. Because sometimes you don't need to be born royal to carry the grace of a queen. Cinderella never forgot the kitchen, or the garden, or the quiet nights when all she had were stars and hope. She planted flowers in the royal grounds, taught children to read under the apple trees, and made sure every voice in the castle was heard, no matter how soft. And as the years passed, when the nights were long and still, Cinderella would walk out to the balcony, holding a cup of tea in her hands. She'd look at the moon, at the sleeping world, and she'd smile, because dreams, the real kind, don't end at midnight. They bloom slowly, gently, with every quiet, kind choice you make. And now, as the story gently folds into silence, I invite you to take a deep breath and let yourself float with the quiet. Cinderella's journey was never just about a slipper, or a ball, or a prince. It was about hope, kindness, the soft strength of someone who keeps believing, even when the world isn't watching, just like you. So as you rest now, maybe under soft blankets, maybe with the sound of rain in the background, remember this: you are more magical than you know, and no moment of goodness is ever wasted. Let your breath slow, let your thoughts drift like clouds in a quiet sky. Tonight, you are safe, you are warm, and you are home. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'll be right here again next time with another story to guide you gently into dreams. Good night, sleep well,